meet everybody and bright blessings. I'm Lady Leeanna once again with this edition of Wicca for Today. This is a very special episode because I am going to let you into my altar room and place where I usually don't allow anybody to go at all, where I do my magic. Now this is a very elaborate array of a witch's tools needed for the altar, but by the same token, it's everything that I require myself to have every time on my altar as I get started. And I'm going to walk you through everything that is on my altar, everything that should be on a witch's altar, whether they intermix them or take away from or whatever. At various times, they're going to need these things. And like I said, this is a very elaborate spread right here for one setting, but generally it's how I like to do things anyway. It's how I feel better about myself and the magic that I do. So let us get started now and call your attention to the table and everything that's on it at a broad look. Let's get started. We have first the pentagram altar towel, and it's made out of wood, and wood, it holds energy, but not to the degree that either stones or metal does. And so I have my favorite type of stone in the heart of the pentagram, and that way the stone can intercept and hold the energy for this particular tile. And for me, they go hand in hand together. They couple together to make that what it is for me. And so this is my pentagram altar towel. And a lot of people will use circular ones. Me, for a square table, it seems rather regular that you would use a square one. Alright, and next to it we have my chalice. And on this chalice it has the three faces of the goddess. If you look upon it, then you see a very old face here of a woman. And then you see a medium-aged face of a woman here. And then you see the face of a young woman here. And it's your maiden, your mother, and your crone. That's the three faces of the triple goddess, and the three aspects in which she presents herself. Now this chalice, I love it because you can actually take the insert out and drink from it. Or actually, after you've drank from it, you can take it out and you can clean it. And so I really love this chalice. It's definitely me. All of these tools are really new because I just began acquiring my own tools after a long period of time of servitude and in a covenant that I was leading with other people, and all my tools would always go in every direction, and so I never actually got to accumulate my own. And so I'm very proud of this little setup here. This all I've put together about myself, surrounding myself and only for me. Let's see. And here we have a bell, a brass bell, and it's used to call a meeting to order, call your circle to order, or ring in your ceremony to begin, to call your spirits to join you. If your spirits, the ones that work with you on a regular level, know of your methods, then they'll be there. Okay, so basically, you know, your bell is to call a ceremony into order, whether it's for mundane human people or spirits on the other side, whether you know, your guardians of the watchtower, or your gods and goddesses, or mundane, smaller spirits is the word I'm looking for. Okay, now, the two that I should have started with to begin with here is the god and goddess statue, and this is Cernunnos, or some call him Cernunnos, and then you've got Diana. And I love these statues. They seem to be a poly resin, but they are heavy as could be, and very gorgeous. They look particularly metal, but they're not. Now, you know, strung on his bow is a metal wiring, but they are a resin. And I just got these not too long ago, and I'm very proud of them, to say the least. And so here I have the representation of the god and goddesses on my altar, and showing through Cernunnos and Diana. Alright, no circle would be complete without your salt, sea salt, to create your holy water with. And it's in what I consider to be a little chalice, but it was an actual old charcoal burner, where I just don't have the top present to it. But I can simply either add the water to this, or I can add this to whatever water, you know, but typically I like to just add my water to this particular little cup, and then stir it around, charge it up, empower it with my athame, and then it's all on. It's ready to begin with. Okay, here we have a little burner in which I burn my leaf herbs, white sage typically, and this is loose white sage herb from my own plants that I grew. And so basically I just set this to burn for myself using my trusty little long ladder. Gotta have them because it's good for everything. I don't like burning your charcoal incense because it's really harsh on your lungs. And this burns just long enough to cleanse your altar with, your circle. And then once you set it down and you don't move it any longer, it tends to go out. If it doesn't go out quick enough, you simply just set something over it, and then it'll gradually go out, or rather fast at this point. Nonetheless, this is how I like to burn my herbs to consecrate my circle. And having trouble with my lungs the way I do, and the bronchitis that I have, it's more ultimate. You don't want to burn a charcoal incense for a long period of time in a cramped, tight quarters. It's just unethical. And so this is my favorite method, and it works for me perfectly. So there we have my burners. And we have a second burner, which is typically for your charcoal incense to go in the center, or your stick incenses to go around the edge or perimeter. But I use it actually to burn loose leaf herbs in also. So, you know, a second herb burner, but sometimes I'll have it on my table just as a tray for stones, various stones that I might be using for that particular ritual, or little herbs or ingredients that I collect from outside, you know, and use it as kind of a little plate, as do this little extra plate likewise. You can never have enough little holders and trays. Right now it's acting as a libation dish for my water and my particularly dry throat. Okay? Alright, so we've covered my little trays there. Now here, the candles that you see burning, one is black. It represents the goddess, the feminine, the void. But here, it's empowering my temple. It's being used to draw power down from above. And I always like to look at it that way. But black does represent the feminine, white represents the masculine. I guess everybody is different. Every witch might have a different idea of the balance and how it is. But to me, black is the void, which would be representation of the feminine attributes. Now, the purple candle here, I always light, and I call it my God candle. You know, it represents my God within these rituals, as the black one represents the goddess, but the purple represents the god. But inevitably, it is to actually be a contribution to the god and goddess. You know, within my standpoint, it's an offering. It's a candle offering. It stands here in their stead, along with their statues, and for them to be a part of me. So both of these candles really empower the temple, and they are a contribution to the god and goddess to say, hey, I light these unto you for all that you do for me. And I always anoint them, the black one with patchouli oil, and the purple one with, say, an oil for whatever it is that I'm doing here, whatever ritual I'm actually performing within this particular rite. Let's say it's for love, I would anoint it with a rose or an amber or love oil. They actually make one that's specifically called love, and I use it for that. Here we have a rattle, a black rattle, and I use this in a lot of the cleansings that I do. It has a little black cat on it. I call it my familiar since I can't have an animal right here where I'm at. So it's my little familiar, basically. It's a little kitty cat, but it's a black rattle, and it has a few of the other colors in it: green and red, white, yellow. So it's gold, multi-dimensional here. You know, so this is my little familiar. But the rattle is used to call out energy, and whatever it is, you know, that you're trying to draw energy out of. If it's to heal somebody, you're calling out illness so that you could send it into the void to get rid of it. You know, and so you're using your rattle to call out energy, good, bad, or indifferent. Every ritual is different, and there's many different things that you would use that for. Alright, I have several different geodes around on my table, and these generally collect and hold energy from above. You know, and I love my stones, and they really do help with different things, mainly just for empowering and healing, aligning, balancing, and so they're very good. You could also use certain stones like this for scrying, much like you would a crystal ball. But it's a geode, and you can scry into the geode. No table would be complete without a libation dish. For everything that you get, do you ever give back? And this should never be forgotten. And it's a show of gratitude for everything that the God and Goddess gives to you. And so, you know, there are collections of herbs, you know, at the end of your ritual that you would pour into the bowl to give that to the deities. And I always give a drink of my libation to the deities. And usually what I'll do is I'll take a sip of the drink, and then I will let it dribble from my mouth and into the bowl. From out of my mouth do I give thee for that which you give to me. In the name of the Almighty Deities, blessed be. And these are the thoughts that I have, and if anybody's in the ritual with me, after I've given the fluid to the bowl, then I will state these words so that they can hear me. So basically you take the sip, and then you place the bowl back down. And basically, they deserve always the first sip before you. So it's tempting that you would have that drink, but that's why it's so giving to them. And usually this would be like a small glass of wine or some nectar or something along those lines if you don't drink. But at the end of the ritual, any of my herbs that get poured into the same libation dish, if I'm doing a ritual for a person, and I always ask them to give me a writing of their name and their birth date on the paper, so that at the end of the rite, I will say to carry their words on air, let them be heard, let them be heard. Carry their words on air, let them be heard. And I'll set fire to the paper, and then I'll drop it into the libation dish after it's, for the most part, burned in my hand. And then, it becomes part of the libation. But the prayers of this person has been sending up. And since they're not here with me, or even if they are, but since usually I don't do my works in front of them, then that's there in their stead. And their words are being carried on air as I'm asking them to be. And so this is what's done. Alrighty. For every table that deals with herbs, you can never go wrong with having a mortar and pestle. Now this is basically a temporary. I don't usually like a wooden mortar and pestle because it doesn't grind up the herbs the way I like it to be done. I like to use marble. Okay? The best you can get, and they're reasonably priced. I mean, altogether. So get you a marble mortar and pestle rather than using a wooden one. You'll be a lot happier about it in the long run. Now, we have a little cauldron that usually I'll either burn a tea light in, or if I use the charcoal disc incense, the quick burning ones, not the little charcoal cones like I would use in this one, but the charcoal disc that I would use here, the big ones, and just dump herbs in on top of, I would use it in this because it prevents any popping of the contents, because it's got the sharp raised sides on it, so it's pretty kosher that way. So this little burner is good for that. And it's got no, this particular one does not have the pentagram on it, but you don't need a pentagram or a triskel or a triquetra on everything that you have. You don't have to have your symbol on everything, although I do like to have a few of my symbol laying around. And of course, as you see, the pentagram is my favorite symbol. Okay, so you have your little mini cauldron, and it works good for your charcoal burner. And then we have all of our oils. Let's see, this particular one is a patchouli oil. I never leave home without it, and I never set home without it. Your patchouli oil, it charges and empowers things. It's brisk, it's fast and speedily, and it's the masculine aspect of things. You can't go wrong with patchouli. It works on just about everything to empower it. Dragon's blood is also good, but to me that is more sexual than and more sexually empowering than it would be magically empowering. So I don't choose dragon's blood myself for that reason. But like I said, I was gonna do like a love spell showing of things here. This is really a generic thing, but I keep all kinds of oils on here, like the love oil, healing, and money and prosperity. I don't keep them all right here, but I have a good case of a lot of different oils, and so I bring out the ones I need for the particular task at hand. Usually I keep 3 on my tables anytime I'm doing a work. Okay, so your oils, very important. Let's see, and various stones and crystals. You have to have stones and crystals. These act as batteries in all of the spell works that I do. All of the protections I do, all of the talismans I do. I use stones, semi-precious stones of various sizes, shapes, and types. And these I use in all my clients' spell works and protections. I have them choose one that they feel completely drawn to. And then I have them pray into it. And then I'll have them drop that into a baggie for me. And then I will, when they're gone, use that in the spell work that they have enlisted my aid in. And so that's what these littler stones are for. And I have some larger ones here likewise. These larger ones I keep on my psychic reading table. I've got a lot of kids that come in here with very real problems. And it's kind of a contribution to their age. I'll choose one of these for them. Not all of them usually are tiger's eye, but as you see, that is my favorite stone altogether. So, you know, I mean, it's the all-seeing eye. And it is ultimate if I'm giving it to a client so I could look in on them, scrying into their lives to see how they're doing when there are people that I really have heart for, and that's usually kids. But these go out to those kids. You know, I just kind of give it to them and tell them to keep it under their pillows, and it'll keep them safe. And these I kind of keep with all my powerful stuff, so it helps to keep them charged and everything for those kids. And whenever I've got a child in trouble, then those children will get these stones. I haven't done that in a while, but I haven't had a lot of kids in here lately. Let's see. And I've told you about my other little incense burner, which is actually a cone and stick burner. Okay. Let's see. A various array of herbs. Okay. I have no less than 3 herbs on my table at any given time, because the good witch always knows to use her herbs. Okay, or his herbs, sorry. Let's see. On my table at this particular moment, I have desert sage, I have witch hazel, go figure, right? And I have none other but the everlasting patchouli herb. Go figure, right? Okay, so patchouli, it's a power herb. It's used to bring power, always. Whether an oil, an herb, or a candle that's said to be patchouli, it is for empowering anything. Okay? It is specifically for power and protection. It's a very protecting herb also. Let's see. Witch hazel, I put that in my client spell works. I put that herb in my client spell works as a representation of me, because you wouldn't use your hair or anything with your DNA in it. That would be a no-no. That would be a taboo. You could use the blood root, which I always suggest because it's blood connotations. It's symbolic for the witch's blood. Okay, so you would chop off a little piece of that and you would put in your spell work as a representation of yourself for another person if it isn't a spell for yourself. For yourself, if you wanted to, you could take a little spot of your own blood if you wanted to, or you could use the blood root, you know, to do your spell work with. But witch hazel also works, you know, hence the name witch. It's basically symbolic, but it's also a power herb and it's a cleanser. Actually, it's a very strong cleanser. Now, the desert sage, I merely use it in my burners You know, whenever I'm using the smaller burners or the charcoal burner, which I don't like to do very much of, I told you. It's to cleanse and purify my circle so that all things dark, negative, or evil are casted out and not let to be a part of me. And that's pretty much the words I use, only I call to my specific deities. And now you're going to get to some of my very important tools likewise. You never have enough excess dishes for holding things in. I'll put red pepper in this for doing my protections for clients and so forth. And I'll use it for other various herbs whenever I need another dish where it's quite easy to just sprinkle it out, you know. Okay, so, okay, ballpoint pen. Ace number 1, tool of the witch today, okay? You can never go wrong with having a pen in your circle. And that's so that you can actually engrave your candles. The perfect engraving tool for wax candles. It doesn't chip them apart. It doesn't actually leave the ink behind usually, although it can once in a while, but usually it does not. It's a perfect engraving tool for your long taper candles or for your votives to do either your invocation of the star or the cross or whatever, or to inscribe your name on it, your birth date. And I do all of this. I do hard-hitting works. Whenever I put myself into something, I'm going to do it wholeheartedly. And so very important, have a pen handy for your engraving if nothing else. You're going to find use of a pen. You don't want to leave your circle and come in and out. A magic wand, and no, we're not Harry Potter here, but we do like our wands. And this is for drawing down the temple, actually erecting the temple, drawing down the moon, casting the light within the circle as you're erecting the temple walls and bringing them up. And I stick it down into my salt whenever I'm consecrating pure salt without water in it for use for my clients and send it home with them. So all of that. Your wand is very important. Also use it for healing, running it back and forth over the client to draw out bad energy. And then I've got to definitely clean my wand right after, although I don't prefer to do that. Basically, I usually have a healing wand, which would take the place of this whenever I'm actually healing somebody. So I would suggest you don't use your prize wand that you use in all your other magic. Get a healing wand. Usually has a lot of stones and crystals in it that will take that energy out, and that's what you need. I handled a knife, not an anathemy, but a knife. This is my silver knife. A lot of people have a black handled knife, but this one was my kitchen utensil. And it's a funny thing, I wasn't going to use it as my black handled knife, but after just using it a few short times at my table, then I noticed whenever I was using a ghost meter, I had just gotten an EMF meter, right? You know, that's supposed to detect electromagnetic fields, usually electrical wires in the walls and so forth, but it detected my silver-handled knife. And from then on out, this became a tool of my altar, and it will always be. It houses as much energy as that electrical cord and that wire does. The electrical cord in the wall, excuse me. So I love my silver-handled knife, but then you have to have your athame also. Your athame is also for drawing down the moon, erecting the temple, directing energy. And it's your masculine symbol that actually couples with your chalice here in a consummational rite to do with the god and goddess coming together to consummate a power within whatever drink you may have within your libation. It will empower it. And then of course you would wipe it down, clean it off, and place it back into its sheath. But it's a triple moon. I don't know if you noticed that, but I ascribe to the pentagrams and the triple moon a lot. Did you get that, camera god? Alright, so my triple moon atoming. Here we go. And then trusty atomy scissors, okay? Why the green marker on it? Why the green yarn on it? Well, it's funny. All my scissors look just like this, and they're all over the house. And sometimes I'll accidentally bring in a new pair of scissors to cut some yarn that wraps my stuff in my rituals or whatever, you know, if it's closer or whatever. And I don't want to mix these up because these also set off my EMF meter. As a matter of fact, all three of these metal objects, and I'll have to show you that one day, all of these will set off my electromagnetic frequency meter, my ghost meter. And they'll show you that there is a crap load of energy inside of them. And so all of these will always be my altar tools, and I always wrap them in red silk whenever I'm through with them. And I know you're thinking red silk, that generally could represent sexual life or warlike energy, but it also represents fire, and so do all of these tools. They're all sharp, they're all pointy, they're all elements of the south, and they are fire. And so they would be wrapped in my red silk. I wrap my chalice in blue silk, I wrap my pentagram in green silk, etc. My wand is always wrapped in yellow silk. I have actually little cases that I've made, each one of them with my own sewing machine out of silk, the color coordination to the direction that they belong to. You know, and that's not to keep them straight, that's just to pay homage and respect to that tool. Because without that tool, you don't have the power that you should have. And that don't mean you have to have those tools, but once you start using them, they're as powerful as you are, and you share that energy. It's a unity between you, them, and the God system. And so, always good. Last but not least, your trusty lighter. Why do I have this big thing laying on my altar, you ask? Well, look how big my table is. I don't have to stretch, lean, or kill myself to get this candle lit or that candle lit. You know, so, or that if I wanted to leave it set down and light them from there, or this. But, you know, also it works good in my oil burners, and sometimes I'll have an oil burner present on my table too, on my altar. And you reach into those with that to light the tea light that's inside. So it's very helpful and handy. These are also good for your glass jar candles. So, get one of these suckers. It pays. Alright? And this goes actually to my little incense holder here. And that's all I have for you today on my table. Like I said, a pretty elaborate array, but you're going to need all of these things at one point or another. I suggest you start accumulating them and acquiring them because they're good to have. Do you know that on the Hunter's Moon, wasn't it the 13th moon? Anyway, it was the brightest moon of the year. I took all my tools and I arrayed them on the hood of my car, which, by the way, all of you know that metal harnesses power and it conducts it too. So what I did was I took all my tools and I placed them on the hood of my vehicle out underneath the hunter's moon all night, and actually every night throughout those 3 nights of the full moon. And after that is whenever my athame, my scissors, and my silver handled knife actually started harnessing, actually setting off my EMF meters. It was after I did this, and after I used them 2 or 3 times after that, it started setting off this meter. And so they have a lot of power in them, and it may very well be because of that. Look to the hunter's moon and make that work for you. It's a very powerful moon indeed. I found that out. I even set all my stones and crystals out there, people. I mean, and it really amped up these tools for me. I love it. I love all my tools. Oh, there is 2 other things I forgot to touch on for you guys. You want a burn pan, okay? And camera god, get over here and take a look at this for me. Right here. This is a heavy ass sucker, okay? But you notice it's got the 3 legs on it that are at least 2.5 inches tall. Whenever I throw something in there to burn, give it to the fire is what I call it. It doesn't burn my carpet or floors. Okay? And it's about 10 inches tall in the bowl alone, and about 10 inches across in the bowl. So, very good size, 10 inch by 12 inch cauldron with legs, and that's counting the leg size as well. You can't go wrong with that cauldron. It's very expensive, but hell, I use this in my house. I burn things in here. At the end of the red, I have to open the door a little bit, tear it out, but I burn as little as possible, like the prayers of the person after it's done. You know, I burn it with that. And last, I have my, well, I usually have my reservoir of water. Camera guy, give me my reservoir of water. Okay, now we have my reservoir of water, and it's a flask. I usually have to have this when, well, either I'm pouring a libation to the gods, or if I'm doing a protection spell, and you've seen, yeah, okay, yeah, there is a protection spell uploaded on the same channel that you can look at if you want to. But you'll see me using this, or, well, I'm not actually using it, but you'll see this on that also. And it is a reservoir of water to fill up the jar spells that I do after I put all the other ingredients on, and it rests right here to my left. So you see, all my bowl type necessities, the big bowl type necessities, reservoirs and burn pans set to my left and right. And that's because they're handy. If you're going to catch something on fire, you want to have it right over your burn bowl so that it's not going to go anywhere. You know, you do not want an accident up in here, right? Okay, so remember, stay right over your burn pan when you do this, and you'll be alright. Nonetheless, you know, by the way, one more thing to pay special attention to is the table that I'm using, the altar that I'm using. And camera god, show the altar. Okay, what we have here is a Japanese katatsu. That's a Japanese table where the legs have little catches underneath, and they fold up and into the bottom of it. See how thick the sides are? I don't guess you can. But the sides are like 2.5 inches thick, but it's hollow underneath. And the legs actually fold up inside of there to where you could slide it in behind your couch or whatever, and it's not seen again until you're ready to use it. And then you pull it out, you set it up, and you're good to go. Well, everybody, I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Wicca for today. and that you've enjoyed my particular array of altar tools. I mean, and you know, that you got something very important out of it. That's the main thing, and all I can really ask. I've enjoyed having you in my altar room, as nobody's been before, right here with this particular array of everything. You know, I usually do my works in private for my clients or whoever I'm trying to help. But, you know, join us again for another edition. I would love to have you. Please rate, comment, and subscribe if you will, and leave your suggestions in the discussion boards below, and I'll be glad to try to touch on those for you as much as I possibly can. Alright, you take care of yourself, and merry part.